Well, we can go ahead and get started. If you're I'm gonna mute you until the Q&A at the end, and we'll go ahead and get started now. If you do have a question specifically about something that I say that you don't understand on a slide, then you can ask in the middle. If not, you can save your questions, write them down as we're going through it. And ask at the end of the Q&A. Somebody can't hear me. Hold on. And there will be times in the presentation, this isn't just a lecture, so there will be times where it's interactive, so I expect you to participate, and I'll unmute you during that part too. And if there's nothing else, we can get started. Renat, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, cool. All right, then let's get started. So this lecture or this seminar is called Self-Empowerment, How to Use Your Mind to Overcome Limiting Beliefs. And when I first started the course, I was asked the question, why is it called self-empowerment? Isn't self-empowerment only boosting ourselves, and that's selfish? And so then I had to come up with the answer to that. So I wanted to make sure I answered that first, and to show you that self-empowerment isn't about only being selfish. It's about self-healing. It's about being able to be a good person, a positive person for those around you, because if you have a lot of negative energy around you, that's going to affect the people in your immediate surroundings, your family, your community, and ultimately that also affects the world, because that's the energy that you're putting out. And so sometimes we have to go in to, and see what's happening with ourselves and fix if there's something that needs to be fixed in order to be a better person for ourselves too, for our health, for our own health, and for our own well-being, but also for those around us, whether it's children, community, at our jobs, or wherever in the world that we want to do. So I really like the quote, the problem with most people is that their problems aren't big enough. And to me, that means that a lot of time we get caught up on this small stuff, like, why is she so rude to me at this job, or things like that, when we really have so much power within ourselves to make such a big difference, whether it's just in our family, in our community, or even in the world as a whole. And so it's important to focus on the big problems, not just the small, whoops, my goodness, not just the small ones. Somebody else can't hear for a second. Anybody that had problems hearing, did you do something to figure that out? And can you tell me what that was so I can help somebody else?
They have to click on the audio button, sorry, and they have to connect into you.
Okay.
It's two options, either to call your phone number, which is the second option, and I forgot exactly what the first option. Anyway, just have them click the first option when they click the audio button.
Okay. Let me see, where's the chat? Okay, thank you for that. So the second quote that I really appreciate here is, only when we understand that our life is integrally tied to that of our neighbors will we be motivated to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And this ties into the fact that we're all connected. We all are made up of energy. We're all connected to this source of energy and this infinite source. So if we're in a positive situation and positive environment, then we're going to affect all of those around us, and we're going to be better people in order to help others. So just to go over what we're going to do today, the first thing I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to be in this position and why I want to teach this. And we'll talk about the rules of the mind, how to make them work for you, and challenging beliefs that don't work for us and how to install new ones. What are Crules? What does it mean that babies are born believing abundance is a birthright, and where are blocks acquired? How do we deal with criticism? What are the unmet needs of a child? And then most blocks show up as self-sabotage or procrastination. And so we're going to work on what causes that and how to overcome that. We're going to go into a forgiveness technique, which is a way of letting go of negative charges. And that's a meditative technique. So we'll practice that as well. After I explain what that is, we'll practice that. We'll take a short 5 to 10 minute break if anybody needs to recoup after the meditation, get a drink or anything. And then we'll go into what I am enough means, gratitude and self-praise, changing our interpretation of fear, and then how do we move forward in setting our goals and intentions for our future. And then I'll talk a little bit about the 6-phase meditation, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So, who am I? This was me around, I think it was November 2005. I was 25 years old. I was, as you can see, very much overweight, very different person than who I am now. And growing up, I wasn't like that. I was fit. I played sports. I came from a good family background. My parents were divorced, but that didn't affect me too much. Middle class, white, Jewish family, everything was pretty cool. I went to a high school that was majority black, and I had a lot of friends, and we got along, and I didn't have many problems. And then I went to college, and I went all the way to a whole nother state where I didn't know anybody, and I found myself at a loss of what I wanted to do with my life. Like, I'm at college because that's what you're supposed to do, but for what? And I really felt like I had no guidance, and I didn't make a whole lot of close friends, and I just started to wonder what this life was all about. And am I just supposed to go get a job and then work, and then that's it? And it just felt like, and I went into a depression because I felt so lost, and found out that depression runs in my family. My mom has been depressed in her adult life. My grandmother was manic depressive. I have a cousin who's manic depressive, and other people, an uncle that was depressed. And and I never thought about suicide, but I came to a point where I oftentimes just wanted to crawl into a hole somewhere and disappear. And so when I graduated from college, I really felt like I had no guidance. I chose a major, and then I chose to go into teaching because I do like working with people in education. But I was in a dead-end relationship. I went and moved near my brother, and I taught for 1 year, and the system was horrible. And then my brother came to Israel and met the Hebrews in Dimona, said, you have to go check them out. And I got out of I came here, ended my relationship. I came here and I just blossomed, and I lost weight. I changed my diet. I learned a lot about spirituality, and I'm still continuing that journey. Since then, I just continued learning more about nutrition and health and spirituality. And I didn't realize it then, but some of the things that I'm going to teach you today are things that I was applying in my life at that time that helped me get to where I wanted to be. And I'm still working on that even now. So recently, within the last year and a half or so, I've been taking more classes online and reading books, and I've been able to define what I was doing to get to a better place in my life. Because when I was depressed, and at UNC, I went to University of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and they had free services for psychologists if you wanted to go see somebody. And I ended up going to a psychiatrist who prescribed antidepressants and said that if you get depressed once, more than likely you'll get depressed again. And if you get depressed again, like, it was a 50% chance. And then if it's again, then it goes up to 80% chance, and then it gets higher and higher. More than likely I'll be living on antidepressants the rest of my life. And to me, that was just like impossible. I couldn't believe that. And so I got to this point where I started learning and studying so that I can help others either come out of any situations that they're in, or that they might have limitations that they've carried with them that they might want to get rid of, or to avoid what I went through if possible. So that's who I am. And now we'll talk about the rules of the mind. I'm here, the whole point of this seminar is to give you some tools that you can use in your own life, and you can apply whatever works for you, and to give you information to help you overcome anything or use the information in the self-healing process. So you can take notes as we go along and choose, after this is over, choose what works for you and what you want to let go and not use, because it's a lot. Whoops. Sorry. Wrong way. Okay. So the rules of the mind, what is expected tends to be realized. And the first example of that is I'm homeschooling. Right now we have 3 boys. My oldest son is the only one homeschooled, and eventually they'll all come home after 1st grade, so they can get some Hebrew and some social skills in the meantime. But my oldest son, he's been homeschooled for 2 years now, and in the morning, if he has something he wants to do that day, he gets his lessons done. He has no problems. We don't hear any complaints. And if he doesn't have anything on his agenda that day, all these lessons are so long and it's so hard. And so his lessons, depending on what he's expecting for that day, can be anywhere from 2 hours and he's done, or it can take pretty much like almost all day. It could go from 8 in the morning all the way to 2 in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And it's frustrating when it's on those days, but we're getting better, I think. But what is expected tends to be realized. Imagination is more powerful than knowledge. So a great example of this is if you hold your hand out in front of you right now, you imagine that you have a lemon in your hand. Can't see all of you, but go ahead and do that. Imagine you have a half a lemon in your hand, and it's nice, juicy lemon, and I want you to just open your mouth and squeeze that lemon right inside your mouth. And notice, 1, you start salivating, and 2, if you really have a great imagination, you start feeling that sourness right back in here. And I'm feeling it right now, and I wasn't even trying to. So imagination is more powerful than knowledge. You know that lemon doesn't exist. On the same line, imagination is more powerful than logic. If you take your arm out in front of you and you stretch back as far as you can go, and it goes about yay far, then logic would say if you do it again, it won't stretch any further. But let's talk to our arms. This is an amazing arm you have right here, and it's really flexible, and it's gonna go, it's so smart and so flexible that you're gonna tell, I want you to go 1/3 further than you just went. And now all of a sudden you can stretch that much further. Logically, your brain would tell you you can't do that, but your imagination is very powerful. Your mind always does what it thinks you want it to do. So it's very important to be clear what you want, because if you tell yourself, man, I've been working this job for so many hours every day, I just want to take a week off, I want to be on my couch and just relax for a week. Your mind will say, okay, you got the flu. You're on your couch, you're resting, you don't have to go to work for a whole week. And so it's important to be clear at what you want you really want your mind to work for. Your mind works to move you away from pain and towards pleasure. So it's important to tell your mind what you want and what you think is pleasurable, because new beginnings, they say new beginnings are always hard. So we procrastinate, we put things off. But if you say, this is really what I want to do because this gives me joy and the benefits I'm going to get when I'm finished, even if it might be a little work right now, then you'll be more likely to move forward as opposed to saying, oh, I can put that off. I want to go out with my friends right now. They're all going out for the nice evening out, and that would be way more fun. Your mind and your emotions respond to the words you say to yourself and the pictures you create in your head. So you really have, this is what I said before, you really have to be clear on what you want. And your mind loves what is familiar and avoids what is unfamiliar. So it's important to make things familiar if you really want them. Like there was a time when I decided I wanted to cut sugar out of my diet. I was having pain with one of my teeth, and I wanted to cut sugar out of my diet. For 30 days, I went on no sugar added diet. The only sugar I had was fresh fruit. I cut out ketchup, anything that had sugar in it, I cut it out of my diet. And by the end of those 30 days, when I actually was able to, when I gave myself permission to have sugar again, I didn't even like it. Everything was too sweet. And so I've been able to reduce my sugar intake tremendously. So your mind loves what is familiar and avoids what is unfamiliar. If something isn't good for you, you can make it unfamiliar. If it's good for you, you can make it familiar. And this goes also with self-praise. This was a big one for me, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I would criticize myself a lot, so I have to work on making that, and I continue to work on that sometimes because it still comes up every now and then, but making self-criticism unfamiliar and making self-praise familiar. Your mind learns by repetition. So this is how you make things familiar, is you repeat things enough and attach positive feelings with it especially, and that becomes more familiar to you. Your mind cannot hold conflicting beliefs. So if you say, I really want to eat healthier and I want to look better and I want to feel better about my body, then you can't say that and say, but I really love pizza. And I really love, but I really love to eat that dessert late at night. If you have that but in there, it will negate everything you said before it. You make your beliefs, and then your beliefs make you. And so this is important because your beliefs, once you make them familiar, they really just become a part of who you are. And every thought becomes like a blueprint for your body and your mind to make manifest. So it's now that we know the rules of the mind, it's important. This is when you have to become more conscious and start thinking about what you're thinking about and realizing that some of those thoughts that you're having aren't serving you. So when you realize that a thought isn't serving you, you have to stop it in its track. Not that it's not going to come up again, because it might, and you know, I still have thoughts that I don't always like, but I stop them and I change them, and I change the wording in my head and install better beliefs. And your mind lets everything in. So tell your mind great things, and your mind will work to make it a reality. Crules, I like this word. It's what? Oh, Zoom. I'm on Zoom. Yeah. It's Crules. Sorry for the interruption. Crules are crap rules or beliefs that are cruel to you. They hold you back. These are limiting beliefs. One example is you have to graduate from college to succeed financially. There's numerous people that have succeeded financially very well without having ever set foot in a college or without ever having graduated. Or just the fact that we call success financial success. Most people say that near success. Well, you can choose to define success however you want. You have the power to define. So success could be being a successful mother, being a successful member of the community, being successful, whatever you are at your job, a teacher, or whatever you do. And so you can choose things. So I want you to think, if you want to unmute yourself, so if there's anybody else that has example of a cruel that might be affecting you or have affected you in your life, you can share that now. One that I realized pretty much in the last year, maybe last few months to a year, for me personally, was growing up. My mom was a doctor and she worked long hours, and I didn't realize it, but I took that in personally as I can't be financially successful, have a career, and be a family and mother and be home with my children and watch them grow like I want them to. So I chose to be a mother at home and be with my children, homeschool and things like that. And I kind of gave up a financial path. And I'm working now on different ways to overcome that and still have income and be able to be with my children and watch them grow and learn and succeed. So that's something that I've had to overcome recently. Anybody else want to share right now? If not, just think of one at the moment that might affect you, and we'll deal with it. Address one way of overcoming that in a moment. So as you think about the rules of the mind and what cruels are, I want to introduce a concept called looping thoughts. And looping thoughts is where your thoughts control and influence your feelings. Then your feelings control and influence your actions and your behaviors, and your actions and behaviors justify your thoughts. And in some cases, your actions and behaviors can be taken out, and your thoughts influence your feelings, and your feelings influence your thoughts, and you get in this pattern that can be positive or negative. And one example is if you've been in a relationship, and if you have a husband, or if you're married and your husband comes home after a long day at work and you've been busy doing other things, and there's not a appreciation going on, and well, he doesn't appreciate me, or he's thinking you don't appreciate him for what he's done, and there's just that tension when he comes in the door. Just changing your thought can change your feelings, and that can create a whole different loop. So the technique is called reframing. And when you reframe a situation, your feelings change about that situation, and then you don't get in that negative cycle. You can get into a positive cycle instead. So where do these cruels or limiting beliefs come from? Because they say babies are born believing abundance is a birthright. Babies, if they cry, they feel all their needs will be met. They cry, they get fed. They cry, they get held. They cry, they get rocked to sleep. They cry, they get their diaper changed. So all their needs are met. So the blocks are required. You acquire your blocks from other people. That's baggage that they're putting on you or that you're picking up. Most of these limiting beliefs are picked up by the age of 5 as unmet needs of a child. And this is because children's brain, the way it works and underdeveloped, is their analytical skills are not developed. So they just take everything in as is, and they're not able to figure out what the meaning of it is. And they pick it up, and you pick these things up and don't even realize it. So unmet needs of a child could be praise, for example. That was something I was always looking for as I was growing up, recognition of from whether or not I did a good job. It could be lack of love. It could be lack of financial stability, sometimes feeling of safety in the house. It could be just feeling enough, whether you feel good enough or strong enough or smart enough or worthy. And then other times family relationships can affect your limiting beliefs. Like if you're an only child or the oldest child or middle child or youngest, you know, that can affect. So you might want to think about that and how your family relationship as you were growing up, if that had an impact on your life. And sometimes criticism from others can lead to developing blocks. So what's important is knowing how to deal with criticism. And if you're all familiar with Meryl Streep, very famous actress, has received numerous awards. And when she was first auditioning on Hollywood, she went into an audition and the director or casting director said, "You're not pretty enough, you'll never make it in this business." And she said, "Thank you for your opinion, and that basically yours is one opinion in a sea of opinions," and she kept going and got to where she is today. So, and when people criticize you, it's important to remember, first, don't let it in. Your own opinion matters the most. And you can replace destructive criticism with a positive belief in your own head. You can have your little cheerleader right here on your shoulder telling you how good you are as opposed to what's wrong with you. So when you respond to criticism, you can just tell people thank you for sharing. Sometimes people criticize and they really intend to help you and not hurt you. And they just don't realize that they're coming off in a negative way. So if you want to take the conversation further, you can ask them, can you repeat that more slowly? And if they repeat it, and you can ask, are you trying to hurt me? And you can ask them or simply remind yourself, did you know that critical people save the most criticism for themselves? And it's important to remember that if they're criticizing you, they're probably criticizing themselves more, and you can let that go. So a great technique for releasing a block or a cruel is called "It's Not Me Because." And you can do this in a way where you write it down in a journal, or you can say it in front of the mirror. But you want to take a limiting belief, for example, and like my mother, I had the belief that I couldn't work and be a mother at home with my children. And so I take that and I say, it's not me because I'm not my mother. I don't have to follow the same path she did. It's not me because I can find work that is fulfilling for me, that earns me enough money, and I can still be at home with my children. And you can fill that ending in 7 times and take that with you. You know, you can do it in the morning, in the evening, you can do it once a day, more than once a day. It's up to you how you want to use this, but just changing the way you look at that and say it's not me because, and fill that ending in, and you can change that cruel and let it go. The most pervasive or widespread way that limiting beliefs manifest themselves is through self-sabotage and procrastination. The mind is wired to be negative, to protect you. And this comes from our animal instincts or our primitive minds. We're modern people living with primitive minds sometimes. And so if something is stressful, we interpret that as a threat because we at one point lived like animals did, and a threat outside could be dangerous to our well-being. So we want to zone in on what that threat is and pay attention to it and be aware of it to protect ourselves from any future threat. But in this modern world, angry boss isn't necessarily a threat on our well-being. And so we have to be careful when those stressors come in and be able to rewire what we're taking in and what we're not. And we often play small because we're scared of change. But here's the thing, you can control the direction of the change in your life. You can control whether that is going to be a positive change or negative change. That's all up to you. Oftentimes we have a want or a need to fit in, and that comes from our primitive mind that when we were in a tribe and we didn't stand out, we were safe because our tribe helped protect us. If we stood out, they might outcast us, and if we don't fit in, then we're on our own and we're not protected. But today, in this modern world, you can give yourself permission to, instead of being afraid to stand out, give yourself permission to be outstanding. We oftentimes like our comfort zone and like what is familiar. Again, like I said before, you can make anything familiar, and you can break out of your comfort zone and create a new one. So I love this quote by Marissa Peer, and a lot of my presentation has come from her work. She was voted the #1 therapist in the UK. And she says, if you think you're too small to make a difference, then you've never been in the same room as a mosquito. And so I really appreciate that quote. And I've really started to dream big, and I hope you follow me and you'll see where we're going. So many of the limiting beliefs most commonly cause self-sabotage and procrastination is the feeling of I'm not worth it, I don't deserve it. And that comes from, like, if I have more than somebody else might have less, or I don't want to stand out and they can't come with me. But what happens is, if you are moving forward and you're doing great things, then you're giving other people permission to do the same, and you might even be able to help more people by progressing yourself. And there's a fear of change. Again, you can control the way change happens in your life and whether it is for the better. And the fear of change and the fear of failure often stops people in their tracks. And there's right here, I want to talk about the man who started KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. He actually had his recipe and he was looking for investors, and he heard the answer no more than 100 times. I don't remember exactly how many, but he was rejected more than 100 times before somebody invested in his business. And obviously you see that business has become internationally known and very successful. The other thing about failure is you can reframe how you see failure, and you can see it as an opportunity to learn, as a blessing for your opportunity to move forward and learn something from the failure. Because failure doesn't mean you have to stop, it means you can keep going. And a great technique you can use as well is called good thing, bad thing, who knows. And what that means is sometimes things seem like they're bad, and maybe you didn't get the job you wanted, and maybe it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, or whatever, but that actually turned out to be an opportunity for something better to come along. So in the moment when something's going wrong, you can see it as, well, good thing, bad thing, who knows? And if it could be better later on, you can ask yourself, how can I make it better? And if you look at it something that way, you can even get to the better situation faster. Having a fear of success, this was one that I'm still working on overcoming. But you can change your mind on success. And for me, I was like, well, if I get really successful, what if it comes so fast I don't know how to deal with it? But I can change my mind and say, well, whatever comes up, I'm sure I'll be capable of dealing with it, or I'll have the right people on my team that'll help me, and I'll be okay. And so I don't have to be afraid of that. And sometimes we have these negative charges or limiting beliefs, or something happens that just really makes us angry. And this negative charge, we can learn to let go of it through forgiveness. And I love the quote by Mahatma Gandhi, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. And forgiveness isn't about pardoning somebody for what they did. It's about letting go of whatever negative charge is within you, so that you can move forward and be at peace. And so this is a tool, and this is a technique. We're going to go into a meditative state, and you're going to learn this technique to let go of any negative charges. And that could be towards a situation, it could be towards a person, it can even be towards yourself. And I'll give you an example. When I first learned this technique, I had a situation that had happened to me where somebody took my money and wouldn't give it back. And so I learned this technique, and I did the technique to forgive that person, let go of that anger. And I came out of this meditation and I felt so empowered and it felt so great. And I went to tell my friend about it. You've got to learn this technique and it's so awesome. And I started telling her all about this situation. I felt myself getting angry all over again. Like I was really getting upset. And I had to realize that I had forgiven the person, but I hadn't forgiven myself, because I was angry at myself for even being in that situation, because I did something stupid to even get in that predicament. So I had to go through the technique and forgive myself. And there's a part where you find out what you learned from it. And in this case, I learned that it's okay to forgive myself, and that it's important to be able to do that, not just for myself, but to do it in front of my children, to show them like, oh, I make mistakes and it's okay. We all make mistakes. And so this technique has been very powerful to me. And it can be for small things. It can be for big things. If you're starting off, I suggest you start with somebody that was rude to you on the bus, or somebody that was a rude waitress at the restaurant or something like that. Start small. But one person who used this technique, he started small and then worked his way up to somebody in his family who had molested him as a child. And he did this technique until he was able to totally clear the negative feelings that he had within himself. And when he was able to release that, like a week and a half later, he got a letter from his relative apologizing for what he had done. And while you might not always get a letter of apology or whatever, just to release that and be at peace within yourself is what it's all about. But it can be used for big things and small things. So how the technique works, and we'll go through it. I'm going to lead you into the meditative state in a minute. But you want to pick 3 counselors or guides. And these can be real people. They can be dead or alive. It can be made up characters. Anybody you want. I just happened to pick like 3 people that I admire. Lisa Nichols was one of them. If you don't know who she is, she grew up in South Central LA, got pregnant with her boyfriend. He got locked up and she had to raise her kid by herself. She was broke, and she ended up becoming one of the greatest motivational speakers, has great selling. She sold millions of copies of her books, and she speaks internationally, worldwide, all the time, and she's very impressive. Another one is Vishen Lakhiani, who is the founder of Mind Valley, which is all about learning how to improve yourself. They have different classes and meditations and things for self-growth, and so I admire him and his work that he's done. And right now, a person that I'm really admiring is Joe Dispenza, and the work that he's doing to change people's lives, and I'll talk about him later too. So anybody, you can pick any of your counselors. You can pick your scene. It can be the scene where the event took place, or you can pick a serene scene like a meadow or a pond or something peaceful that helps you relax. And you'll go into the meditative state. And if you're not familiar with meditation, there are different brainwave patterns that we have on a daily basis. And your active waking brainwave pattern is called beta. If you want to find out more information about them, they're called, it's called beta. If you want to change the name because you don't like the Greek alphabet for whatever reason, you can name it what you want. But if you want to look up more information, beta is your waking brainwave pattern. And you can go into mid-range beta if you start getting a little irritated, or even high-range beta if you start getting into stress. And that's where you are super focused in on what your problem is. And if you start trying to analyze your problems in the world around you, and that it's a bad pattern to get into. So when you get into high beta brainwave patterns, you want to just let that emotion pass and get back to your normal beta. Alpha, you go into throughout the day if you start daydreaming or imagining someone at work, or if you imagine things while you're driving home and you don't know how you got from one place to the other. That's your alpha brainwave pattern. It's also the brainwave pattern before you, as you get sleepy or right as you wake up in the morning. And it's the meditative state. If you go into a deeper meditation, then it's called theta. And that's associated with creativity, with receptivity, and that's and also your dream states of sleeping. And so when you're in theta, a lot of times, a lot of successful people will keep dream journals, because in theta, or when they're dreaming, they might have some insight and they wake up and they write it down so that they don't forget. And then if you really go into very deep meditation, or if you're in a deep sleep where you're resting and restoring, that's called delta. So those are your brainwave patterns. But right now it's important to be in alpha for this meditative practice. If you don't know how to get into alpha yourself, you can always Google or look on YouTube for alpha meditation, and just put your headphones on and it'll take you into alpha, and you can go through the technique while you're listening to some soft music. Once you have your counselors, you pick the scene, you pick your person person or situation, once you're in alpha, you face the cues with your counselors behind you, and you read the charges, and you want to replay what needs forgiving and get into those emotions. You might come slightly out of your meditative state, but you want to bring forth the emotions. Don't do this for more than 2 minutes. You don't want to dwell in those emotions, but you want to feel the pain that you felt to a certain extent, and then take a few seconds to pause for that peacefulness. And then this is where we think about what you might have learned from this situation, how you might have grown, how it affected you in a way that was good for you. And think about how the other person might have been hurt in the past. And remember the phrase, hurt people hurt people. And so it doesn't matter what really happened if you know or don't know, you can just make it up. And then see the whole situation from their eyes. And this isn't to justify or pardon them, but you want to feel maybe what pain they were feeling and why they took it out on you for whatever reason. And that helps you get into a state where you're able to forgive and to love and feel compassion towards that person. And if you can, give that person a pat on the back or even a hug in this meditation. And then forgive yourself if that's part of what you need to do for being in this situation. And at the end, if you want, you can re-script the event to see a different outcome. But that's optional. Then as you finish all of this, you want to turn behind you and ask each one of your counselors one at a time if you've done your work, if you're finished here. And if any of them shake their head no or tell you no, then at a later time, you want to come back and redo it again for the same situation or the same person. So if you have a situation in mind, we can go through the technique. It takes a few minutes. And so I want you to close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths. Inhale through your nose and breathe out. Take one more. Breathe out. And I want you to imagine a tangerine, something the size of a tangerine, a small ball or a tangerine sitting right on the crown of your head. And as you feel it sitting there, feel that tingling sensation right around there. And imagine that relaxation feeling traveling down into your face, behind your eyes, into your cheeks. And imagine in the middle of your head, and imagine that relaxation and that energy surrounding your head as well. And then let that relaxation go down into your neck, your throat. And picture that energy spreading out around, in the space around your body. And let it travel down into your shoulders, your arms, your wrists, your hands, your fingers. And imagine it flowing down into your chest. And imagine the space around, the energy flowing out from your chest and your abdomen into this space around your body as well. And imagine that relaxation energy flowing down into your hips, your thighs, your knees, your calves, into your ankles, and into your feet and toes. And as you're relaxed, I want you to place yourself in the scene. Imagine your 3 counselors showing up behind you. The first counselor comes, and then the second counselor, and the third counselor. And then turn back to the front and face the accused. Face the situation or the person and read them the charges. Tell them how they upset you. And feel those feelings. Feel the pain that they caused. Tell them exactly what they did to hurt you. And then come to a close for that and just pause for peacefulness. Come back to your meditative state, relaxed state. And think about what you might have learned from this event. How did you grow? And I want you to think about how the other person might have been hurt in the past. And remember that hurt people hurt people. And how could they have possibly seen that situation and what caused them to act the way they did? And then I want you to forgive and to love and feel compassion towards that person. And if you feel enough compassion or love, you can give that person a hug or even just a pat on the back. And forgive yourself for having been in that situation. And if you choose to, you can re-script the event and see a different outcome. How could it have been different? How could it have been better? And as you come to a close, I want you to turn to your first counselor. Just ask if my work here is done. And turn to your second counselor and ask again, is my work here done? And then turn to your third counselor and ask if your work is done. And then you can come back into your present awareness and open your eyes when you're ready. And at this point, if any of your counselors said that you're not finished, you can come back and do this again later. And you'll have the recording so you can look at it again and forward to this part and go through it again with my voice, or you can learn how to do it at your own pace. And we can, if anybody needs a little refresher or drink water, you can do that at this time. We'll take about 5 minutes and I'll be right back.
Want some juice? You want some?
Gotta make my daughter some dinner. Should have did it earlier. And then I said I want to go out.
She comes home every day.
Huh?
She comes home every day.
She out there, mommy. She working.
Oh, wow.
In their shower, she go to she working with Yes. And she don't get home till 9. But she don't leave till 12. So I be trying to make sure she has some dinner.
You never lost your librarian,
I
locker.
always see my locker, mommy. I got 3 of these.
You know,
love it.
I was only there for a short period,
Yeah, you was. I didn't even know it was that
but I fell in love with the locker skirt.
shit.
And you're making me wanna get me a
Oh,
pair.
it's an African
Because
thing.
I never wore the big skirt at the same I always wore the locker. The whole time I was in the community.
Yeah, really?
So when I left the community, I was really, you know, changing everything, and I really never fell out of love with my locker skirt. I just love it. I love it.
I was talking about it.
Take a break.
It is being recorded. So don't say anything you don't.
Because it's loud, it's okay, it's all fine.
Okay.
This one is yours?
This one.
So, I'm okay, thank you. When you're ready, we can come back. I'll just see.
So excited and proud of Kyle.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I remember I told you you want to be with me. Because I was mentioning you was in the heart of the depression. And you sleeping.
Oops. Actually, that was more of a questioning period that I went through. I was depressed before I got here. When I got here, I was really coming out of it.
You living in your dark. You living in your darkest moment of motherhood kind of shook you up. That's what I remember.
A little
And I was
bit.
like, Kyle, you are
It was
a
lack of-
Superman. Remember I told you was a Superman? I thought that she was going to learn so much.
We lost someone, but it's okay. All right, so
Yeah.
we're gonna go ahead and come back. I'm gonna talk about the phrase, I am enough. And Marissa Peer, the woman I was talking about earlier, I learned this from her. She used this phrase like I said before, she was voted the #1 therapist in all of the UK. And she became so well known that she was called upon internationally. She was called to come to a Hollywood set because there was an actor in a movie who was very difficult to work with, and he was kind of holding up the production. And so she was flown all the way in and told to go to his house and talk to him and see what she could do. And so when she got there, she was told, okay, don't drive your car all the way up to his house because he doesn't like cars anything less than a certain bracket, like it had to cost at least this much for it to be parked in his yard. And she was like, okay, whatever, and went into his house, and as soon as she got in, he started complaining about this, that, and the other, and how she reminded him of his second wife, and how he didn't like this and he didn't like that. And she found out a little bit about his childhood, and said, you know what your problem is you don't think you're enough. Your father didn't praise you, or he didn't acknowledge all that you were capable of doing. Said, you think you're not enough. So she said, I'm gonna take my lipstick, I'm gonna write on your bathroom mirror, I am enough, and I need you to keep it on there for 30 days. You can't wipe it off. And she did that, and she left. The movie got finished, and she didn't hear from him again. And so like 2 years later, she ran into him. He was overweight at the time, and he had become a successful movie star, but he still had these issues. And so she ran into him 2 years later, and he comes up to her, look at me, and like lifts his shirt up, and she's like, whoa, hold up. He's like, no, look how much weight I've lost, and I just came back from this vacation where I went all by myself, and I felt so comfortable in my own skin. I sold my big house. I'm just living, and I met somebody, and I'm just doing really well, and I thank you so much. And so this phrase has been really powerful. Another woman she worked with, she had to work more closely with her. She was on the verge of suicide in a mental facility, and a friend of hers said, I don't know what to do with her. Can you please help? And she came and found out that the young woman had walked in and found her mother's dead body after her mother committed suicide. And she said, well, your problem is that you don't think you're enough, because if you were enough, then your mother wouldn't have done that and left you alone. And so she would text her back and forth, "You are enough," and she wrote it on her mirror, and she set reminders in her phone. And eventually the young woman started responding back with, "Yes, I am enough." And the woman came out of her depression and started her own help aid for people with depression and people that needed help. And just another woman felt like she was enough and didn't have this issue, but she put it on the screensavers of all her computers at her office, and productivity went up. Just the environment became more positive and friendly in her workplace. And so just this phrase can be really important. So it's important to love yourself like your life depends on it. And gratitude and self-praise are an important part of that. And if you think about gratitude, think about it like if you gave somebody a gift, like you went out of your way to pick this person out, a special friend of yours, this beautiful sweater that you thought just would look so nice on them, and you give it to them and they open the wrapping and they're excited and they look at it and they go, "Ew, you bought me this. This is such a horrible color, and I thought you knew me, and it's not even my right size, and why would you get this for me? This is so ugly." Would you ever want to get that person a gift again? Well, think about the universe being like that. And if you're grateful for what you have, then you're going to get more things to be grateful for. And just the feeling of gratitude leads to a life of appreciation and happiness. And the important thing, what's the difference between gratitude and active gratitude? Active gratitude is where you actually feel grateful. So you don't want to just go off, "Well, I'm grateful for my house, I'm grateful for my car, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for," you don't want to just name a bunch of stuff and not feel it. You want to feel it and see if you can go into a meditative state for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, if you can work up to 20 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, maybe 5 minutes in the middle of the day. Just feel that gratitude. See if you can feel it, especially from your heart center, but feel it from your head all the way to your toe. And even if something's going wrong, see if there's a way to feel grateful about it. And this is what it's important to do with children too. So with self-praise and gratitude, with your children, you can have them name, like in the evening as you're eating dinner together, you can have them name 3 things that they're grateful for each day. You can, and then at least one thing that they're proud of each day. So it can be at dinner time, or it can be like right before when they go to bed at night. And then see if they can name something that they didn't like that they're not grateful for, and if they can find something to be grateful within that which they didn't like. Because one time, for example, my mother comes to visit me in Israel twice a year, and my boys all wanted to go with me to meet her at the airport. So we all jumped in the car. We get about 2/3 of the way to the airport, and all of a sudden the engine light comes on, says "stop" in big red letters, and the car was overheating. I pulled off to the side of the road. I'd never dealt with anything like that before. I was a little nervous, but you know, still collected. But I was like, okay, I don't know how we're going to deal with that. I called my husband. He said, okay, hold tight. I'm going to see if I know anybody in that area. And just meanwhile, just stay on the side of the road, let the engine cool off. And once it cools off after 20 minutes or so, see if you can get to a nearby gas station. And I called my mom in the meantime. She was able to rent a car and meet us at a gas station. So we get to the gas station, we're waiting for her. And we didn't have any food. We were supposed to be back in time for dinner. I buy them some snacks, and this is our dinner. We're eating in a little, like on the curb on the street by the car. They had a little table. We went to the table inside. We're just waiting there, and I asked the boys, what can you be grateful for in this situation? Because there was a lot not to be grateful for. And so my oldest son said, I'm grateful we didn't have to hitch a ride from anybody. I was like, yeah, that's a good thing. And my middle son said something else, and my youngest son said something, and I said, I'm grateful we're all together and nobody got hurt and nothing bad happened. So to find something that you're grateful for, or that you can encourage your children to be grateful for, even when it's something that's not going well, is important. And then as I said earlier, self-praise was always an issue that I had growing up, and I was very self-critical. And I found myself, when I started learning this technique, even like burning the broccoli for dinner, I would call myself, "Oh, you're so stupid. I'm so stupid. I did a stupid thing. I'm not a stupid person just because I burned some broccoli." So it's important that now when I do something stupid, because I certainly still do stupid stuff, that was a stupid thing I did, but I can still feel whole about myself, and I'm a very intelligent person that's capable of doing a lot of great things. So self-praise is important, and to get your kids to say what they're proud of, or even yourself. A technique that I learned from Lisa Nichols, I love this technique, is what she calls the mirror technique. And you can do this once a day, in the morning or at night before you go to bed. And there's 3 sentences that you fill in 7 different endings for each sentence. The first one, you want to say, "I'm proud of you for." You say your name in the mirror and you say, "I'm proud of you for," and you name 7 things you're proud of yourself. And you want to do this for at least 21 days, if not longer. And then the second sentence is, "I forgive you for." And that one has brought me to tears in the mirror. And the third sentence is, "I commit to you that." And if you can say those 3 things and in 7 different endings, at least 21 days, you'll be at a much better place. That's a great technique that you can use as well. And changing the way we interpret fear is very important. So, the other thing for children, when you praise children, it's important not to just say "good job" or "oh wow, you're so strong" or "you're so smart." Sometimes children will take that and say, "Yeah, I'm all right, but such and such is smarter, or such and such is stronger, or I can't do it so great." And so instead of telling them right out how they are, you can tell them what they did was so great, or you can describe what they did and let them praise themselves. So, "Wow, look at how you just solved that hard problem right there." And then they can say, "Oh, yeah, that's because I'm really smart." So descriptive praise is a great technique to use with children as well. So changing the way we interpret fear. Sometimes fear is just a lack of information. So it just means you have to go out and learn a new skill or learn some more about that topic in order to move forward with it. Sometimes fear is that primitive mentality, saying that what if everything goes wrong? Well, you can change the story. What if it all goes right? Wouldn't that be so cool? And if you get even half of what you want, you can be grateful for that. And then you can just see fear as excitement. So when I first started doing these seminars, I did have a slight fear of public speaking and saying too many times, and what if people don't like it? And so I had to change that interpretation to, wow, I'm really excited about being able to share this with people. And that just pushed me forward. And even if none of these things work, the most important thing is not to let fear stop you. Just to pick it up and carry it with you. And you can quote me on this one: miracles happen on the other side of fear. And so if all things are going well and you keep moving forward in spite of the fear, or you just want to sing it with your kids, and you can sing. So I want y'all to unmute yourselves for a minute so you can sing with me. And we're going to sing some songs.
I'm unmuted. One second.
I unmuted everybody. I think I unmuted everybody.
I should do that. Yeah.
So, whoops. So the first song is simply "I Love Myself," and the tune goes like this, and I'll sing it, then you can sing it with me. I love myself, 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 I love myself. I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. And if you don't like the tune, you can make up your own. Next song from a man who was from Australia, and he was driving and he fell asleep at the wheel and had a horrible car crash and lost his right arm completely. His right leg, he didn't lose it, but it became practically unfunctionable. He couldn't bend his knee, and he, riding in cars or planes, it was very uncomfortable. But from his accident, he and his wife ended up starting a foundation to help especially children with disabilities who were seen as outcasts in their communities, and in order to help them have a better life and see themselves in a better light. So he created this song. I'm going to sing it once, and then you can sing it with me. This song goes like this. I am awesome. I am awesome. Every day of my life, I am awesome. If I remember to be grateful and ensure that I am thankful, I am awesome. Yeah, I am awesome. So this song is great, especially if you have little kids. My youngest son and I sing it. We are awesome. I am awesome. You are awesome. So you can sing it with me now. I am awesome. I am awesome. Every day of my life, I am awesome. If I remember to be grateful and ensure that I am thankful, I am awesome. Yeah, I am awesome.
Here. Great.
Get this back.
Y'all are awesome, and I appreciate you very much. So as we continue and we keep moving forward in spite of fear, and you sing this praise, and you're doing great, and you see what you're capable of, now it's time to start setting some goals and moving forward in our lives. And these are some techniques that you can use. And so these are just some techniques. I'm going to go through some techniques, and you can choose what works for you on a daily basis. You can, some of them are to how to set your intentions for the day. Some of them are setting them for the future. And so a good goal, I love the quote. This is by Vishen Lakhiani. A good goal should scare you a little and excite you a lot. So it's really important that you feel excited about what you want to accomplish, and you can start creating your vision for what you want to do and how you want to give back and be fulfilled in your life. And then it's important to become a divine dreamer, as Ben Ami says, is the concept of envisioning your future, but also knowing what it's going to take to get there. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be all hard work and all uphill. Sometimes it might be, sometimes it might not be. Sometimes you can create something and what you create finds you, and it's not hard, but you're not going to sit on the couch and say, okay, I'm creating this great life, and then why hasn't it happened? You actually do have to go out and do something. And so when you're setting goals and you might come across failure, or when something happens, there's one important note to know what to do to deal with failure. One, you can get frustrated. That probably won't help you much. And then you can find things to fix, and that might help a little bit. But what's really interesting is, what if you take the problem or the failure and you create a whole new vision that renders that old problem obsolete? You turn that problem into a project. And so there was a man by the name of Bert Goldman, and he's created a lot of programs, some for children on mindfulness and how to use with children, and he's created meditative classes and things like that. But when he was starting off, he only had a few classes, and he was making an okay living, but it wasn't so great. And he came out of his work one evening and saw that his car had a big dent in it. And as he and there was no note, nobody took responsibility for it. He went to the mechanic to see how much it was going to cost, and it was going to cost $800 that he didn't have. And so he turned this into a project and said, how can I create $800 more of income in my life? And he ended up creating a new meditation course or a new course that he taught, and got enough students enrolled that he was making $800 a month more than what he was making before. So now not only was he able to pay for his car, but he was actually able to save money for in case of another rainy day, or if he wanted to go on a trip, and that created more income in his life. So you can always turn a problem into a project. And then the other thing to remember about failure is not to be attached necessarily to your end goal. Once you set your goal or your intention, there's the universal law of detachment. And so you don't want to attach it to where if it doesn't go the way you said it, that's a failure on your part. You want to attach it because maybe something could be happening that's better around the corner, or but you really want to invest in the process. And this technique, investing in the process, is to just ask yourself, are you doing all that you can to make your dream a reality? And John Wooden, he was a famous basketball player, and then he became the coach of UCLA, and he became one of the most winningest coaches and is in the Hall of Fame for that. And what he did was he took his players and he said, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. At the end of the game, what matters most is if you can look at yourself in the mirror and ask, did I put my best foot forward? Was I the best team player? Was I the best at my skills? And if you can answer yes to that, then more likely than not, you'll find more wins than losses. And so it's very important to invest in the process. And a technique just for setting your day is called segment intending. So what you do with this is just to set how you want your day to go. You can do it in the shower before you go to work, on the way if you're driving to work, or in a meditation in the morning or at night before you go to bed, and set your day on how you want it to go, just by saying, wouldn't it be nice if my breakfast went like this, and if my morning drive went like this? Wouldn't it be nice if my day went like this, or my lunch went like this? And as you ask that question, think about the idea of a benevolent universe, and that the universe really has my back, and I'm going to get my day the way I want it. And you don't necessarily be attached if it doesn't go quite the way you want it, but more often than not, it will, because the universe does have your back. And so that's one technique. Another technique is called lofty questions. And this technique is, instead of using positive affirmations like I am wealthy, I am loved, I am surrounded by love, instead of using affirmations, because if you're not really feeling those affirmations in your heart, then those affirmations, they stop right here and they don't get past that part of your brain. But if you can use those affirmations along with the feelings of, wow, I'm so abundant, or I'm so loved, or I'm surrounded by love, then that's great. But if you can't, then start off with a question like, why am I in such perfect health? Why am I enjoying all of life, all that life has to offer? And why do I have such great relationships with my kids? Why am I such a great money manager and earn money and manage my money and grow my money the way I'm supposed to? Why am I constantly surrounded by love and loving people? And as you ask yourself those questions, now your brain and your body has to work to figure out how to get there and how to make that a reality. So you ask why you already have what you want instead of stating it. Another technique is to write down your goal 20 times in present tense every day. And the man who created the cartoon Dilbert, I can't think of his name, but he did this, and he started off by wanting to be successful in the stock market. And he wrote this down every day, 20 times a day. And one night he just woke up in the middle of the night with the word Chrysler on his mind, and he wrote it down, and he checked the stocks for Chrysler, and this was like everybody was advising to get out of Chrysler at this time. And he bought Chrysler stock, and I think like within a week or so, the company changed its management and the stock started taking off, and he became successful. And similar things happened with other stocks. And then he also wanted to be a successful writer, and he ended up doing this technique twice for 2 books that became simultaneous bestsellers on the New York Times bestsellers list. So it's important that we know, I love this quote by Nelson Mandela, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So we have to figure out how we can shine. And meditation is so important. It's such a major part of both the self-healing process as well as being able to set and achieve goals in your life, and to be able to go within, whether it's 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. It's just such an important, there's so many benefits to meditating, and you can look them up on Google. But I really love and recommend this 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. It's free, you can look it up on YouTube. And what he's done is taken kind of the best techniques out of various meditative techniques, and he put them into different phases. And so the first phase, he guides you through the meditation, and the first phase is love and compassion and feeling connection to the world around you. Second phase is gratitude. The third phase is peace, freedom from your negative charges through forgiveness. The fourth phase is creating a vision for your future. And then the fifth phase is your sense of control, what your intentions are for that day. And then phase 6 is your support system, feeling support, feeling that what you want is a blessing, and feeling that blessing. So this description, I just took from the description. And what I like to do is I like to download things from YouTube, especially meditations. And you can do that by looking up YouTube to MP3 converter and pick a website you like, and then copy the website and download it, because I put my phone on airplane mode while I meditate. I don't want that radiation near me. So that's how you can download that if you want. And that is my presentation for now. I thank you very much for coming on. I love you, and words of truth provide health to your soul. So I hope you've received some positive information, something that you can use. And before you go, I just want to ask you, what now? What are you going to do with what I've given you today? You know, are you going to take the notes or take the video and say, yeah, I'll watch it again, and never come back to it, keep living the way you were? Or are there techniques that you're going to stop and review your notes and go back and see how you can implement them? So I hope that the latter is true, and that you've gotten some great information. And so if you're all, where is it? How do I? If you're all, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself at this time and ask questions. And if you don't mind, afterwards, I will send you a quick, where is this? There we go. Okay. So afterwards, I'm going to send you a little form that you can give me some feedback if you take about 5 to 10 minutes. So you'll get that either today or tomorrow. And I would really appreciate any feedback that you have. But if you have any questions that you want to ask me right now, you're more than welcome. And
Shalom, Kaya. It's Coach Julia.
hey.
Hey, that was good. As you see, I'm out and about the city in my car, driving from point to point, trying to tune in where I could. Do you ever think about doing sessions specifically for Yeldine, like under YWAM and then one for YWAM?
Somebody else recommended that, and I want to work with the principal at Akva and see if I can develop something with the high school age.
Stop on that hard head.
That's when I did take education classes for teaching high school, so that's the age that I'm more equipped to work with. But I haven't thought about younger ages.
I'm not supposed to get off work.
But I definitely am thinking about
bringing
developing
a
that.
slush machine.
Well, my son here, you remember this guy here, right? He's been sitting here squirming through it, but we're going to review it and see how we can actually
Can you
create a
call her?
daily schedule and see where we can pencil in those times, pencil in some of
Martha
the
Mango
exact
tonight?
things to say and do. Because we're all about
You said the what?
application. I plan on putting I'm enough on our mirrors, our bathrooms, and you know, it was very good timing. We start back school next week. Well, I start back tomorrow. He starts back the week after. And we really want to put some concrete things in place to make sure that we create a better school year this year than we did last year. So
Okay, great.
you can give me details on the payment. I didn't ever see a link to pay, so just shoot me some info.
Okay,
Hold on.
I'll definitely let you know.
Okay. Bye.
Ta-da. Any other questions?
No question from me, but I will start using the affirmations. That's something that I definitely need to work on.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks
At the
for
moment,
coming.
no questions from me either. But I'll
Okay.
start with looping thoughts and try something with my baby's affirmations. I'm enough. I know one of mine seem to have behavior problem. Don't listen, just hard-headed.
Well, with the looping thoughts, it's also to remember, like, focus on when you can, anything positive they do, and try to really reaffirm that as opposed to reaffirming too much of the negative.
That's what I was going to start with.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed it.
I
Even though
appreciate
they
it.
were bothering me most of the class. It's
It's okay.
bedtime. I'm about to put them to bed. Prayer and to bed.
I understand.
Hopefully we'll talk soon. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm about to be on it so they can be in bed next 10-15 minutes.
All right. Love to you and the family.
Back at you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hey, Kyle, what's up? Can you hear me?
Hey. Yeah,
Thanks
definitely.
for the invite again, and it was good, and I enjoyed it, and I just wanted to tell you thank you again. Every time I listen, something new stands out to me, and this time I want to use just the, like you said, the looping thoughts. I want to use that with myself because, like, you know how before we talked about how we know how to do everything, you know, for other people already, but we never do it for ourselves, right? And so I want to do it for myself and it helps to stay focused on the project that I'm on, but enjoy the journey while it's happening and not focus on that goal. Just focus on the journey as it happens, like you said. I want to do that, but remind my thoughts to continue to be active in the doing, you know, and not just set it to the side and be like, you know, so, yeah. So that's all I wanted to say. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Yeah, children out, but I'm over
Thank you so much for coming.
everything. It's so amazing. And I'm trying to get my girls to attend those.
Okay. Well, I'll have one on the card. They're more than welcome on the 27th.
I want to see how I can tune them in, you know, to give them these gifts, because these are gifts. And these are things that simple things to do. It's just about a shift of attitude and information. You need to know that every day. To understand the power of being in control of your experiences and things you're having. This is very key. So I'm flabbergasted on this all the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. If there aren't any other questions, if there are, feel free to speak, but I will be sending you all the link to the recording either today or tomorrow. It's a little late here, so it might be tomorrow, but you'll definitely be getting that as well.
I just want to say thank you again. I enjoyed the class.
Thank you
It
for
was
hosting
good.
me.
Yes, very good. I enjoyed it. I really want to help you, Kaya, see how we can get this, because my children, the tone that you use, it stayed, like when you took public speaking, you stay like this. So it's hard for us to stay. But I have tried to do this and I love to learn this. And I know it's just because we're doing this and we're speaking into a camera, and so you have this big heart to give it all. So I'm willing to take it. If you had the right setting, like you said initially, or with this tidy out and cutting, and they were sitting there and you could create that seminar, I just think it's awesome, it's perfect, and it's like, it's something that really needs to happen, especially with our young minds from ages out from 21, 22 to 30. This is something that they need, because this is all about vibrations and energy.
Yeah,
This is
definitely.
definitely something that if they knew, they would. But it's just getting the communications going and getting everybody out. It's like something that we're grateful now it's here.
It's coming.
And we just have to make sure, we have to help to come together. And that's what I want to do. I want to help to come together so that we can deal with it. And it would be like a lifesaver, because you know, I have 4 daughters
Right.
from ages 33, 30, 29.
Well, I have a feeling it's coming. I didn't find this out until after my grandmother passed, and she would work with families who had people that were either alcohol dependent or on drugs. And so in her community, and her and this other man that started this, they said for 6 months, they gave the meeting only to each other. Nobody showed up. So it's the beginning, and everybody, I mean, you know, I'm not just, I'm excited. You know.
I'm excited, please, because I've been putting it out there that I want someone to sit my girls, because you know, as a mom, you really can't help your children. I don't care how you try, it's not your job, you will never fix them.
It's that in my
They have to go, when they get a certain age, they have to go out of the home, and they have to learn from someone else. They couldn't hear, I can say it all, but they don't have to go and receive it. They have to receive it from someone else. And who would be a better person in the fight? Because there's no, you don't have a judgmental attitude. You claim the kingdom, but you're not from here. This is going to be honest, because everyone has a tone that chases people away or that judges people. And not, like, you're not being from here, you were sent here as a kid. And you have a much lighter heart that will gravitate to you. So you're the perfect person. I just see this as a blessing.
Oh, man.
I'm excited. But she's funnier, but she didn't go through how people will put down and made to dominate and push. You don't have that. You don't have that. So your tone and everything will be perfect. I just see it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm just going to close out one more time. Thank you so much for coming, so much for participating, and I love and appreciate you all so much.
Thank you. Love you back.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Everybody have a good rest of the day, rest of your evening. Love you much.
Bye.